Hey guys, in today's video, I wanted to give you my 5 tips for painting portraits. I think this is especially useful if you're a beginner, but I always use these tips whenever I'm painting, and I did use them in today's time lapse, so I would really recommend that you use them as well. Before we begin, I did want to say thank you so much to Yellow Images for sponsoring this video. If you don't know what Yellow Images is, it is the #1 marketplace of 40,000 high-quality premium mockups, creative fonts, 360-degree images, and a creative store full of amazing graphic assets like lettering, icons, illustrations, patterns, textures, presets, brushes, user interface, kits, and more. If you don't know, I am actually a graphic design major in college. Mockups are insanely useful when you're a graphic designer, or even whenever you have a shop or you are going to be presenting a product to a client and want it to look professional. A couple of reasons that Yellow Image mockups are super incredible to use are because they take minutes to use, they are insanely easy to put your own images into, and they come in high resolution with great lighting, shadows, and texture to give your mockups a realistic look and feel to the design. And I personally love that all of the mockups have a similar style and they look unified. So if you're going to be creating a package for a client, all of your mockups are going to look cohesive and put together. And just so I can show you how easy these mockups are to use, I put my own magazine into one of these mockups. It took me 3 minutes to do. I took a publication class last semester, and my final product was supposed to be a magazine. I went with a route of making an art fairy journal, but it still needs a little bit of work, and I need to add maybe 20 more pages to it, and then I will actually put it up in my shop. I would use this mockup if I was going to put it up in my shop, which I will later on, hopefully sometime in the next couple months, and I could show you previews of what the pages look like without having to take photos and editing those photos and having to make those photos look as professional as possible. And the exciting part is I will have a 30% discount down in the description using the code SarahTempest30 for the first 100 people to use the coupon. But thank you so much to Yellow Images for sponsoring this video. My first tip is to begin with a solid sketch. If you're not satisfied with a sketch and you're counting on painting over the problems in your sketch, you're going to have a much more difficult time in the end. It's going to be very hard to get the proper proportions to your painting, and a lot of times what happens to me is I end up scrapping that one painting and having to start over. It's something that has time and again happened to me. If I get a little bit too bored to make my sketch as perfect as it needs to be, I start painting and then none of the proportions are correct and I'm unsatisfied with the painting and I have to start over. So I would definitely recommend for you to have a very solid sketch to begin with. It's the foundation for your painting, quite literally, and you want to make sure you have the proper proportions and you're happy with what that looks like, because that's going to be the skeleton on which you're going to build the rest of your painting. So if you don't focus on perfecting your sketch, your final painting is not going to be up to par. My second tip is to paint with a darker skin tone than you think you need. Something that I did as a beginner, and I see a lot of beginner artists doing, is using very light skin tones. It's hard to understand colors and values and lighting from the start when you are a beginner, so our minds are also conditioned to interpret words like peachy and tan as much lighter colors than they actually would be on skin in specific lighting. So when you think of peachy, you kind of think of a really light pink orange color, but really, even if somebody has a very fair pale skin tone, that is going to be much darker on the actual painting than you think you need. So I would recommend painting with a darker skin tone than you think you need. You can always go in later with curves to lighten a darker image. It's going to be much easier to do that rather than to darken a very light image. Same goes with photography. It's better to underexpose than overexpose. So I would recommend using a darker color for skin tones than you think you need. My third tip is to wait to apply the brightest highlights until you're working on details or until right at the very end. Since they are the most fun part, a lot of times when I was starting out, I would apply highlights right at the beginning, and something that does is it skews your understanding of all the other values. Since the brightest highlights, like on the eyes and where I put them on the nose and on the lips, they are high contrast, If you're adding them right at the beginning, it's going to make you feel like you need to lighten the rest of the tones on the face because of how high contrast they are. It's going to look out of place and you're going to want to blend everything. You're going to add lighter tones into your skin, so it's going to make the skin a lot lighter than it needs to be. So I would definitely recommend waiting to add brighter highlights until the middle to the last half of your painting process. There is a theme here of working against using light tones and values. When you're beginning, you're definitely going to be more shy about applying darker colors than contrast, since you're probably going to be worried about ruining your painting and you think you can gradually work down. But that really does have just to do with the confidence in your skills, and you know, like, I understand that if you aren't very familiar with painting portraits, it's not something that you are confident in. But painting with darker tones and adding contrast to your pieces is going to make them look much more professional and polished. You can always lighten with curves. It's much harder to darken with curves or levels or adjustment layers. My fourth tip is to use overlay, soft light, multiply layers, and more, whatever you can use in those layer adjustments, to adjust your tones, values, and colors. It's easier to change colors and values with these layers if you're already happy with the details and forms that you've painted. So if your painting is in a certain direction where you are happy with the details and the structure that you've created, but you're not exactly happy with the colors or the lighting, the tones, you can always change those with adjustment layers. Use multiply if you want to add darker shadows, use overlay and soft light if you want to change some of the colors. So definitely don't be afraid of using multiple layers, especially if you have a final form that you're happy with, you're just not happy with the lighting or the colors. And my last tip is to use curves to correct values and colors. So I did this on this painting, and I've mentioned a couple times already, but as you saw, the skin tone, the value for her skin was very dark. That's what I laid down on the canvas, but I wanted the final painting to have very pale skin. So I used curves to make the piece more cohesive and finished by adding similar tones and colors and tweaking that so it all looks more bright and vibrant, and that all of the colors have a little bit more contrast to them. So those are 5 of my top tips for painting portraits, especially if you're a beginner. Let me know if any of these were helpful. If you'd like a part 2 about other tips I have, because I do have a lot more things that I would like to share with you. If you wanted to hear them, if you thought this was helpful, just let me know and I will make a part 2. But I hope you enjoy this video. This is going to be July's Patreon postcard, just so you know. So if you like it, you can head over to my Patreon and sign up for the postcard reward tier, or even the sticker reward tier where you get 3 stickers and this postcard. So if you're interested in that, check out my Patreon down in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I will talk to you guys in my next video, and thank you so much to Yellow Images for sponsoring this video. Have a great rest of your day. Bye!